Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Extra Shift. I'm Chris, here as always with Brendan. How are we doing?
Pretty good. Yeah, it's so close to playoff time, but so far, like it's just honestly been pulling teeth watching these games that do not fucking matter in the least. But look, we're close. It's episode 231.
Excuse me,
Welcome.
they matter to some people.
Yeah,
They matter to us in fantasy.
yeah.
We
Well,
are
they do it in the way that it's completely fucked the matchup that we have. So to put it in, yeah.
pull back the curtain.
Yeah, so Chris and I are in a final matchup, like in a league that started this year. But there are some like minor like issues with the league in that the scoring format got tweaked so that it really emphasized goalies.
At one point, I had 6 goalies on the team.
Yeah, it basically like to the point where like the average goalie is better to own than Connor McDavid. Like it's just totally fucked the scoring system. That like you're better off running 6 goalies and like not and like leaving like skater spots done. So that's totally
we've resolved that between the two of us. We had an
agreement.
But
yeah, that's an easy fix. Like, that can be tweaked. Unfortunately, what we didn't realize is that coming into this final kind of matchup is that it's also like in Yahoo and other like platforms, you can set like which week is the finals week. And usually if you're an experienced manager running a league, you set the league final matchup to be like a week back from the final kind of matchup week of the season, because what happens, as we've all seen, is during this like last week and a half of the NHL regular season, a bunch of teams have already clinched and they're resting players. So we've gone into this week, this matchup, and not even realizing that it was a week and a half matchup. So it's just totally destroyed any kind of competitiveness.
We are in the battle for who has more people playing.
Yeah,
that is what
I actually haven't. Yeah, I actually haven't looked at the. Oh yeah, now I'm down like 30 points.
Yeah, now you're down.
Yeah,
but hey,
I was winning by like 60 points like 4 days ago or whatever, and then the Penguins rested their entire roster, which is like 5 of my guys. Yeah, and it's basically, I think I had 8 out of 13 skaters rested today, so it's just made the entire thing a complete waste of everyone's time.
The initial prediction had me winning by 15, and then in about 3 days after that, it had Brendan up by about 40, and then it's now flipped again. And the other thing is too, we only get 4 moves.
Yeah, in a week and a half.
A week and a half, we all made our moves in like the first 2 days, and then went, oh crap. So yeah, we are literally just sitting right now and just letting a final play out where we're both.
It's just there's nothing we can do because we don't have any moves. 90% of our roster is in like day to day because they are like being rested or don't have any games left, and we can't change anything out. Yeah, it's just a complete waste of everyone's time. Unfortunately,
it's a stagnant final. But don't worry about it, because if I win, I am doing victory laps anyway.
Oh yeah, I think that you will. Like, I think statistically, I just don't think there's any way that I can win at this point.
From 5th, it's a lap after.
Yeah, you did well.
Anyway, it is episode 231. So we think. But yeah, no, it is. It's the Grant Fur episode, really.
It is because we say it is.
Oh yeah, well, it's Grant Fur. Dominic Hasek for 1 year in Chicago. So lots of, it's a very goalie heavy number.
And San Jose Sharks legend Carey Price.
Yes, well, I was going to get there because like Martin Jones, Cujo, Carey Price. It is literally just goalies. Eddie Lack. It's goalies ahoy. Curtis McElhaney, who has played for almost everybody. And I believe now, I only learned this the other day when I was listening to Steve Dangle rip apart the front office of Toronto, is their coordinator of goalies. He's the coaching director for and director of goaltending. So, and they're like, that bit's working. Don't fire him. Can I just look? We've joking around about Sharks legend Carey Price, but let me just also genuine Sharks legend Antti Niemi. And I know Chicago fans going, hey, and I'm like, no,
Short-term Penguins legend, Anthony Niemi.
Yeah, well, he played for everyone too. Everyone's had a bit of a go. And then, and then Billy Smith. I mean, what has he ever done apart from win a bunch of cups? Anyway, we'll move past all that now because we've got a couple of things to discuss before we get into the sort of the main crux of what we're going to talk about today. What we're going to talk about today mainly is not going to be the teams that made it, by the way. It's going to be the teams that missed. Now, we're going to start talking about two teams. Well, actually, before we do that, I do need to bring up, because you put this in the notes, and we always look for the greatest hockey names.
Yeah.
And there are some good ones. But I do think you're right now. We have the greatest hockey name. Please.
Today, making his debut for Minnesota on defense is Viking Gustafsson Nyberg. That is maybe the most Nordic name it could possibly
I really wanted him to be from, Texas.
Yeah.
His parents are just recreationists. They love recreating the Norse invasion of the UK. They've got they've got Lindisfarne sort of set up in their front lounge room, and he just comes and invades the monasteries.
Yeah, he is from Stockholm. That's fair. Like, if I had to guess, that would be where I would guess. But he did play. He did play in the U.S. college system.
Mm-hmm.
So from Connecticut, you can say that it's Viking Gustafsson Nyberg from Connecticut if you want.
Of the Connecticut Nybergs.
Yeah.
Of the Hyannisport Nybergs.
That's right.
Holidaying with the Kennedys.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into two teams that didn't make it, because three teams actually that didn't make it in our sort of front office musings. So the first one is that the New York Islanders decided, after we talked about all the coach firings and hirings, and was very late on, decided to fire Patrick Roy and hire Peter DeBoer. Now,
it really came out of nowhere, to be honest.
It was absolute left field. Now, I do like the idea that, when someone tried to give Patrick Roy feedback on his coaching, he just told them that unfortunately he couldn't hear them because his Stanley Cups were rings were plugging his ears. And that might have been why they didn't want him there. But although apparently in the aftermath, they said he did spend a lot of time talking about the fact that he'd won Stanley Cups. Apparently inside the locker room, he was not very popular because all he kept on telling everyone was when I won the cup. But Peter DeBoer being hired, I saw a lot of Leaf fans in particular, and we talked about this the other day. We were joking around about, the Leafs are desperate to try to hire DeBoer before someone else does, and then this happens. I'm interested by this. I think that and we've talked about DeBoer hockey before, and obviously I'm very well, very au fait with DeBoer hockey. By the way, this year is the end of the 10th anniversary of DeBoer hockey's finest moment. It is the 10th anniversary of your Penguins somehow upsetting my mighty Sharks, because that was the story I told myself. But that was the highlight of DeBoer hockey. Never quite as good. DeBoer hockey is largely long bomb with someone standing in front of tip. That's largely what he does. The island kind of feels like a decent fit for that, and especially with a certain very good young defenseman who's got a pretty good sort of shot from the line. This feels like a decent move.
I think it makes sense for the kind of hockey that the Islanders want to play, for sure. They're a lunch pail kind of team. That's kind of their identity. They don't have a bunch of guys who are going out there and dangling around doing a whole bunch of stuff or whatever that are their top scorers or anything. You could argue that Barzal or someone is that player, but I don't think that it ends up in the net that often.
And if you remember, when they hired Patrick Roy, we said that was the outlier. That was a weird move because he's not a very defensive-minded sort of coach.
Yeah.
So one of these things is not like the other. I'm just going to read a list. Scott Gordon, Jack Capuano, Doug Waite, Barry Trotz, Lane Lambert, Patrick Roy, Peter DeBoer. One of those things is not like the other, and it's Patrick Roy. The rest of them are all, bring your lunch pail to work, go in there, put in a hard shift, all of those. If you keep going way back, Ted Nolan, you know, you go all the way back. You know, Rick Bonus before. We'll come back to him in a minute. Who can forget?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of Islanders hockey.
Milbury,
yeah, that's what you think of when you think of Islanders hockey, really. So
I mean,
it'll probably be fine.
It matches. I don't think it's going to be successful, but I think it's going to look like the Islanders.
Yeah, I'm not expecting them to do better or anything. Like, to be honest, I kind of thought that they would fall off a little more than they did, and I kind of thought that they would just continue being, you know, average, and that would be maybe enough for them to sneak into a playoff position. And didn't quite work out, really, and it got close. Like, it's really just the fact that they really kind of tailed off in the last, you know, probably 3 weeks, really. Like, they were like second in the Metro maybe like 3 weeks ago.
And we'll come to it. There were a few teams in the Metro that had that locked up in terms of you're going to make this.
Yeah.
And they all spent the last couple of weeks trying to hand it to somebody else until the Flyers kind of went, oh, okay.
All right, I'll take it.
We'll have it. Because
they're like just basically just the one team that went on a decent you know, winning streak, and it was almost Washington. Like, Washington were almost that team as well. Like, they actually had a better last 10 games than the Flyers did. They were just coming from further back.
Yeah, so for people listening at home, the Metro, this is how the Metro finished. So the Metro finished out, the Hurricanes were 7-2-1, which, yes, the Hurricanes. The Penguins were 5-5-0, and again, you know, there was
the last 3 games were
once they
AHL players. Like,
the Flyers were 7-3-0 and the Caps were 8-2-0. So those two went on a tear. The Blue Jackets, who we'll talk about in a minute, were 2-7-1. The Islanders were 3-7-0. The Devs were 5-4-1. And the Rangers were 5-5-0. Like, that isn't great. That's really not great. So I think that, look, the Islanders are the Islanders. I think that they're going to look a lot more like the Islanders now. I don't think that it makes them worse. I don't think it makes them better. I just think it looks more like the Islanders. And so probably from an optics, it'll look good. De Boer will say all the right things about having to work hard on the defensive end. He'll talk a lot about big bodies and like big bodies crashing into the zones and stuff like that. Not what they'll actually do, but he'll tell everyone that's what they're going to do. And we'll go from there. Speaking of people that are going to tell everybody the right things they want to hear, Rick Bonus. Now, when Rick Bonus was hired, I mocked quite seriously, and I was told by some people within the group that, you know, you don't know what you're talking about. That's exactly what they need is Rick Bonus. And Rick Bonus has confirmed that what the Columbus Blue Jackets really need is Rick Bonus. He said at his press conference today that the team was soft. And he talked about the idea of changing the culture. His quote was, "If I'm back, I'm changing the culture. These guys don't care. Losing is not important enough to them. It doesn't bother them." And then, yeah, so he talks about the idea. He hasn't had a conversation yet if he's staying or going. But Rick Bonus telling everybody that this team was soft and weak and they don't care about losing. Now, people who love Rick Bonus will point out that Rick Bonus's record in Columbus is he's got 21 wins, 11 losses, 5. So, you know, 635. You go, yeah, that's a really good record in 37 games until you realize they went 3-13. Yep. They finished out really badly. What they did was they beat up on a lot of mediocre teams when he took over the team. They had the Blackhawks a couple of times. They had the Canucks a couple of times. They had the Flames a couple of times. And then on the run home, they got absolutely destroyed. They were horrible down the stretch. But Rick Bonus has told us that the thing that can fix Columbus is Rick Bonus because he's tough.
Yeah. I mean, look, it just honestly, it feels like posturing to me for that market. You know, it's like, well, I don't have a contract past this point. I'm gonna make it, you know, make my point that, like, you know, I'm gonna be able to fix it. I'm gonna be able to, you know, this is probably just as much for management as it is for the media, as it is for the fans and the team and so forth. That, like, you know, I didn't get a chance to do what I wanted to do. I'm gonna fix it all by changing the culture in this team. And like, to be honest, like, like we talked about with the Islanders, Columbus are very much that kind of workhorse kind of, lunch pail team. I just don't know what anyone was expecting from Columbus this year, to be honest. Like, they came into the season with the loss of Johnny Gaudreau, the real kind of setback that, they were, just going to do this heartfelt thing and try and, like, win for him and all that kind of stuff. But, like, I don't think anyone had the Blue Jackets, like, pegged as a playoff team. The fact that they got in the mix, like, they were, a few points out, like, they had a better season than anyone expected. The wheels came off at points, but, like, I just don't know what we were expecting to see from the Columbus Blue Jackets that was better than this.
It's a roster of misfit toys. Like, it really is. Like, their saving grace is the fact that they've got Adam Fantilli. And, he was decent this year. The problem, I think the other problem for poor Adam Fantilli is that, he's in the same draft as Leo Carlson and obviously Connor Bedard. And then the immediate draft following is Macklin Celebrini. So he gets very much lost in the shuffle. And he's in Columbus, which, is not really a market. And we talked about this when Gaudreau went there, that it's an unusual spot for him to go because it's not really what you'd call a market that people think of when they think hockey. But he had 59 points in 82 this year, which is fine. It's
they have a bunch of guys who may take another step, and suddenly, in the way that, like, like the Ducks young players have and things like that. Like that maybe there'll be a season coming up where it all kind of clicks in, and guys like Fantilli and Kent Johnson and all those kind of guys like Kirillchenko also, for all of those kind of young players that they have take another step forward. I don't know. Like, I'm not expecting that they have a hidden superstar amongst those players.
I mean, we have been told a lot by people this year that Zach Werenski is apparently the greatest defenseman in the league, which he's good, but he's not. I don't think he's elite. But I think that he stands out a lot more when you look at what's around him. I think that helps him. I think if he's on a roster with other good defensemen, he's a good defenseman. But I don't think he's an elite defenseman in terms of if you can pick a 1D pairing, you're not putting him on it. But like the team is a bunch of sort of early 30s and then a bunch of like younger. There's this really big gulf in sort of experience level. Sean Monahan, Connor Garland, Charlie Coyle, Mason Marchment, and the Marchment trade and stuff like that. Like it's an interesting mix. Boone Jenner, of course, is still going.
I think
how old do you think Boone Jenner is?
I did just look at it, but he is younger than I thought that he was.
Yeah, I thought he was about 36.
I thought he was about 36. He is apparently 32. Looking at their roster, like he feels like that grizzled old guy, obviously being the captain and everything. But I'm curious. They have a bunch of contracts that are coming off the books. That nothing super impactful. Marchment, Coyle, Jenner, who I imagine will resign given he's the captain. Danton Heinen, like no one like super impactful. There isn't really anyone in the in free agency that's going to change this team in a significant way. I kind of feel like this is going to be more or less the same team coming into next year.
And the really interesting thing that we're about to learn is like the one thing they do have coming up that's going to be fascinating for me is this is Fantilli's contract year.
Yeah.
So he's an RFA. Now, what does that Fantilli contract look like, and how does that Fantilli contract impact what they do around him? That's going to be I think that's going to be a really interesting sort of conversation piece going forward, because I don't know, like next year at the moment, they've got enough cap space. That's not going to be like it's 39 million in cap space, almost 40 in cap space. But you've got to put something around him. And what if you're Fantilli, what do you ask for?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they sign him long term with the understanding, the expectation that he, turns into this player that they expect him to be. I still suspect that that's going to be some kind of maybe like 8 years, 8 million, something like that.
I don't think he. I don't think. I think he's asking for a double digit at the start of that.
I think he is too. I don't.
I think it's a 10.
Yeah, possibly.
I think it's a 10 on the basis of if I'm staying here, it's a 10.
There's probably a good chance that happens because what else are they going to spend the money on?
Yeah, because his answer is, well, if you don't do that, well, then okay, fine. If you want to give me 10, I can go somewhere else. And if someone offer sheets him, they'll offer sheet him for under the picks. If I'm Adam Fantilli, I'm going to them and I'm negotiating and saying it's a 10 minimum because what else are you spending money on? I'm the future of the franchise. What are you spending it on? Like, there's no one. We've all said there's no one, and we're going to talk about it a bit more when we get to the teams. Like, we'll break Columbus down a bit more in a minute. But speaking of teams we need to break down, the Devils fired Tom Fitzgerald as general manager, which is amazing to me because I believe that he had done some level of satanic deal and that demons were maintaining his role within that organization, because how he wasn't fired years ago is absolutely bemusing to everybody.
It's wild. It's wild that he's been there for 6 years, and
he's overseen all of this.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was a point in time where it really seemed like they were this really strong up and coming team. I think I picked them to, to make the playoffs a couple of years ago and make some moves. And they've really just disappointed every single year. Like, they look like on paper they should be way better than they are. And even for like the individual greatness of players like Jack Hughes and everyone that kind of look down their roster, they've got a heap of really good players, and it just does not seem to translate to wins.
No, I mean, if you remember, Rachel Krychak talking about working inside an analytics department with Tom Fitzgerald overseeing, and that was not a fun experience for anyone involved. And she had nothing but negatives to say coming out of that. As a man manager, and she said as well as an evaluator of talent, that he wasn't a very good evaluator of talent. And I think it's been quite like I think that it's really interesting because I think that one of the things that actually probably doomed him is if you think about the swings that he's made. The big swing that he took was the trade with the Sharks. And I'd argue that absolutely bombed. Like I don't think you can argue that it didn't bomb. But the interesting part about the Timo Meier trade is that, like, I remember at the time I was thrilled with what we managed to get back for him because I kind of always felt that Timo had a ceiling. And it wasn't that it was a crap team and that's why Timo wasn't pushing over a certain line. It was kind of like, this is where Timo is. But he was the best available forward in that thing at deadline. And, they did hang on to some very good players that the Sharks wanted. But they didn't want to move McMadullen. They didn't want to move the picks out. They moved out. And those picks have come in handy for the Sharks. I think that after the big swing and miss on Timo Meier, they've not quite been the same. Like, if they didn't get the luck of jumping a long way up in the draft to go and get Hughes, they would have been in massive trouble. Like, they would have been in absolute, like, massive trouble. That's true. And they're now stuck with, like, that Timo Meier contract is $8 million until 2029, 2030. That's way too much to be paying Timo Meier. Way too much. And then he didn't take the swing to bring Quinn Hughes in. And I think that the bookending of Tom Fitzgerald in New Jersey is he took a swing on Timo Meier when he probably shouldn't have, and didn't take the swing on Quinn Hughes when he probably should have. I think that's going to be the legacy of Tom Fitzgerald, like just taking swings at weird times.
Yeah, it's an odd one. I think that there's still a handful of good, kind of players there on that roster, but there's a bunch of stuff that probably needs to get cycled out. I'm curious to see who they hire for the GM role and what kind of moves they start to make. Maybe they do a bit of a 2-3 year kind of retool where they a lot of these shorter term contracts will be off the books by then, and they'll really kind of get to build this team the way that whoever comes in sees, this team being. I'm curious to see what that looks like, because I just don't see like why they can't be competitive in the next few years' time with the core pieces they've got are there and they're locked up for long term. And they should realistically be able to, compete. And they just are in a kind of a weird spot where they're like, oh, we don't want to play Dougie Hamilton. We don't want to, we don't want to do all these things. We have these players that should be good that are just not, putting up points. That I feel like it should be a fixable situation there.
Is the Dougie Hamilton situation the weirdest situation in the NHL at the moment?
It's super, I don't know. I really don't understand what the problem
why
is.
Sign him to the extension and then basically go, oh, we shouldn't have done that. Oh, crap. Will you go?
Yeah.
No. Well, what about here? No. What about
Dougie Hamilton? Feels like a Phil Kessel situation where he is like a guy with like maybe a personality that doesn't necessarily mesh with everyone else, that is just waiting for like to be traded to the right team and then like take off.
The funny part about it is I don't want that cap hit on the Sharks. I didn't necessarily want him on the Sharks in terms of speed and stuff like that. But he also does kind of strike me as someone who would be good on the Sharks because he'd have the right attitude. I think he'd have the right attitude for the Sharks. But speaking of the Devils, let's start with the Devils, shall we? So what we're going to do is, rather than just sort of break down, the idea of each of these teams, we're going to jump on the YouTuber bandwagon and we're going to tier list this. So we've broken it into tiers, partly because we want to sort of, again, get on the YouTube bandwagon, but far more importantly, it actually lets us remember to talk about every single team, because we do hear from people that we never talk about their team, or when we do, it's just so I can say they suck. And you do, by the way,
to be able to. Yeah, I think it's interesting at this point of the season to talk about the teams that have been eliminated, because for the next few months, we're going to be talking entirely about the playoff teams. So
it used to be my favorite thing was the Hockey News that did it with the eulogies for the eliminated teams. The eulogies were always my favorite thing. I love the eulogies. So let's start with the New Jersey Devils. Now, the categories are: will make the playoffs. This is all for next season. Very likely to be in the mix. Depends on the off season. Will likely struggle, or draft lottery odds will be high. These are the categories. Now, the Devils. The problem with the Devils is, I think it's on paper, you look at the roster and you go, there's a lot of talent on that roster. But again, one of my favorite sentences with teams that I don't particularly like, they roll like an egg. And there's very clearly not a balance. I also don't know. Sheldon Keefe I like Sheldon Keefe. We've talked a lot about this. I really like Sheldon Keefe as a coach. I don't think this is built for Sheldon Keefe. It's not the offensive high flyer that he wants.
No, I think the big question for me with the Devils is who they hire as GM, because that's going to very much depend on what they start to do with the team, and also whether or not they keep the coach, whether or not they change the the coach, bring in a new system. It's so up in the air at this point in time. I don't think that that's a 1 year thing, though. I think that even if they bring in a very like progressive GM and a progressive coach, and even if they take a little bit of a step forward, I mean, I'm wavering between depends on the offseason and will likely struggle. But if I had to take a gut pick at it, I think that like in 2 years they're probably on the upswing, but next year there's probably just too much change still to come before they're really going to be there. I would put will likely struggle.
I've got them between the same two. Yeah. My reason for leaning a little bit more on the depends on the off season is I look at, and I think it depends on Luke Hughes as well.
Yeah.
And like he's been all over the place. The other big question mark though, and this is where I think I think depends on the off season. The interesting thing with depends on the off season for me as a category is it is also, it's not just a positive connotation. There is a negative on that.
Yeah.
And I think that the big one is the weird, and we just talked about the fact that obviously they've now got rid of Tom Fitzgerald, but some of the players that he was particularly thinking of shopping, like especially like Nimac was on there, and then people were talking about Dawson Mercer, and there were all these players that had been absolute no-goes with the Devils who suddenly were being floated in trade talks. And I look at that, and if they start moving those sorts of players out, I think they're absolutely screwed. I'm okay with putting them in more likely struggle.
I'm also fine with depends on the offseason, because I think that is very much true. I just think looking at next season, I think the chances are that they're not going to be up,
as I said,
next season.
I think the determining factor there is I don't think they're built for the coach they've got. And I think he's a good hire, but I think they hired him and then didn't give him what he wants.
Yeah, it's probably going to take at least a year to start turning it around.
It's like the idea of hiring Peter DeBoer for a high-flying offensive unit.
Yeah.
Like that's just not, you don't do that. You don't hire him for that purpose. The Sharks, I want to get the Sharks out of the way early. So I think there will be a lot of people that are going to automatically have me and will make the playoffs territory. Now, I did last podcast say they were going to make it, at which point they absolutely had the bottom drop out and could not remember how to win a game of hockey for a really long time, and then started to win right at the very end when it no longer mattered. Macklin Celebrini, obviously, unreal season. They're still, again, I think there's so much upside. I think there's so much positive. They're very much a team on the up. But I'm going to have them in very likely, in my mind, I've got them in very likely to be in the mix. Not will make the playoffs. And it's a little bit depends on the off-season-ish, but I think it's more than that. Because I think offensively they've still got the tools to do it. But that defense is an all-time horrific defense.
Yeah.
And you can't have Celebrini and Misa and Smith and all of those guys like out there, like Colin Graff on like an unreal scoring run or just a playing like a demon run. And then have like Dmitry Orlov. Like you can't do that.
It's interesting too, because so much of that blue line is a pending UFA. They could look completely different on the blue line.
They're planning on it.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully better. Like I think you're right. Like if they improve that blue line, I don't see why they shouldn't be in the mix. Like potentially, if they win their last 2 games, they're 2 points behind the Ducks. Like they very much could have, if things swing right, it would have been one.
That Vancouver game's gonna kill them. And
one game one way or the other, they could have made the playoffs this year. So given how flawed they are as a team, if they make smart moves in the offseason, I don't see why they aren't in the mix. But it is a huge question mark on what they do in a pretty weak UFA.
The other interesting one for me is that the player that's apparently being shopped around is Eklund. Apparently, they've said they're open to William Eklund, possibly being used as the trade bait.
I get it in the perspective of if they can get it like an equivalent defenseman back.
But that's I struggle with that one. I think that Eklund's been good. The issue is I think that people expected Eklund to turn into something more than what he is. And what he is a very good second line forward. He's a great second line forward. He's not your top line guy. But to be fair, the Sharks have the top line guys. It's if you've got a second line which has Eklund and Toffoli, and then you put one of the 15 billion centers the Sharks have down the middle.
Yeah,
you're laughing. That's a really solid first 2 lines.
That's fine.
But I think that what I understand about it is that the Sharks are looking at it from the perspective of they need defense, and if they can ship Eklund out and bring in the top line defenseman they're looking for, my concern is they're going to do something dumb like decide that Morgan Riley's really good, and that's my worry. But or the Dougie Hamilton thing does happen and they don't get the Devils to retain and they take all $9 million, which that would be a mistake as well. I'm if you're okay with it, I'm gonna put them in likely to be in the mix.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah,
I think it's slightly up on depends on the off season because I said even if the defensive core is mediocre, we saw that Macklin Celebrini single handedly got.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like it's not like they don't already have a mediocre D core, and they were still pretty close.
The other thing is too, just quickly, and we'll move on. Is that Askarov and Nedeljkovic are still, well, Nedeljkovic in particular, Askarov in particular is still growing as a player. He was really good down the middle of the season, and then like towards the end of the season, him and Ned were both really bad in that home stretch. Yeah. And my other question mark on the Sharks is I don't think they're going to get rid of him in the off season, but if the Sharks come out of the gate and they're not looking great, I think Wasowski goes. The only reason I think they get rid of him early is if for some reason Bruce Cassidy went, hey, I really like to coach Macklin Celebrini. Then I think the Sharks probably drive Warsaw to the airport.
Yeah, fair.
All right, Calgary. Oh, boy. Positives for Calgary fans. Positives for Calgary fans.
Yeah.
Dustin Wolf's good.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, look, it's a tough one. I don't know that they're ready to go on the upswing yet. Like there is so much nothing on their roster still.
My category is, are they in struggle or draft lottery odds? Because I think the only thing that's saving them from draft lottery odds is another team that we're going to talk about in a bit.
I mean, they are currently fourth last in the league. Yeah, so that is effectively draft lottery. And they could still slip into the top three.
They can go lower.
Yeah, they can go lower. Like if the Rangers win their next game and Calgary doesn't, then they'll have the third best odds. So look, I think I do feel like draft lottery is maybe a good spot for them realistically, because I mean, what are we considering draft lottery? Is that top 3 or is that top,
I'm
10?
saying top, I'll say top 4, maybe top 5.
Yeah.
Because I think that the problem with Calgary is we got told when Treliving left that, it had been a horrible organization, but they fixed all of that up now. And they haven't. The organization is still terrible. And we got told that Treliving's replacement was much better at managing up. And instead, he's not. He's just not. And we've just had this absolute run of nothing in Calgary. It's really, like they eventually got the replacement for the Saddle Dome approved, but like, you'd think that might have given them a bit of an upswing in his organization. Nope, they haven't even had an upswing off the back of that. And you just look at the roster, and it's
way worse than I thought.
It's a suitcase of nothing.
I'm like, holy shit! There's really just no one who's doing anything on this roster.
No, the trade, like the trades that they've sort of way they've sent people out of town. That's why I'm waiting to see if a team decides to bring a truckload of picks to Calgary and like ask about Wolf and go, can we maybe get him, please? Because like he's really good and you're not. They've not got anything, and their drafts haven't been good. Like it's not even like you look at the pipeline and go, well, they've got plenty coming through the pipeline, because they don't. Like Wolf is kind of it.
I feel like they're gonna get worse rather than better in the next couple of years, I think.
Yep. Okay. The Capitals. Now this one has a very large number.
Big question mark. There's a big question mark on this.
This has a number 8 sized hole on it.
Yeah. I mean, look,
I thought he was playing, and the last couple of games have given me a feeling that he's not.
He's given so many mixed signals though. So like, so coming into the weekend, the Penguins and the Capitals had a back-to-back. The Penguins didn't play like basically anyone over 30 on their on the first game, because the NHL went to all the trouble to be like, this is the 100th time that Crosby and Ovechkin are going to play together. This is this huge milestone, and then the Penguins are like, oh no, Crosby's not playing. We just clinched we just clinched, and we already have home ice advantage. There's no reason for us to play him. And then I feel like maybe they got a call that night and be like, come on, maybe this is his last game.
Bill Daly's like, excuse me, guys.
Yeah, this is maybe this is his last game in Washington on home ice. It would be nice if you played. And then they, on that second half of the back-to-back, they played like basically, Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Carlson, and then a bunch of guys they still rested.
Yeah.
But when the rest of the team was still AHL guys. But they got a chance to, do their little photo ops, do their have Ovechkin face off with Crosby in their 100th game, all this kind of stuff. But then the Penguins, at the end of the game, offered to stay out on the ice to shake hands with Ovechkin, and he said no. I do think that Ovi doesn't know at this point in time whether or not he's coming back 100% for sure. I'm sure that personally he has some position one way or the other. Obviously, he doesn't have a contract. He could sign another, 1-year contract to play in Washington. He does still have some records that he can beat next year. If he plays again, I think that he can still beat like the points all time kind of goals all time record. I think it's goals all time because that includes like playoff goals and stuff. So there is something potentially if he played one more season that he could do. Does that matter to him? Does he decide to hang it up? Obviously we saw him take a pretty big step back this year compared to last year when the Capitals were basically doing everything they could to feed him the puck to get him that goals record. He is literally 40 years old. He got 32 he had 64 points this year, 32 goals. So a step down obviously from basically what he did in 23-24, the year before he set the goals record. So that's probably kind of what we should expect. Like he could play one more year and probably have a 60-point season. That's nothing to that's nothing to sniff at. Like that's a totally reasonable thing. If he wants to play one more year, he could. But is it worth it to him? I think that he's kind of he's right now like in the feelings about like this was my last 20 years of my life. What do I do next? Do I go back to the KHL? Do I do something? What do I want to do with my life? So I wouldn't be shocked to see him play one more year, but I also I think this team kind of overperformed a little bit what they were expecting. I don't think that they're a playoff team next year, regardless of whether he's in the team or not.
I reckon depends on the off season, and again, that's largely Ovechkin because I think without Ovechkin, I don't think they're vaguely close.
Not even vaguely close, no. Yeah, I'm not sure that they're close with him, to be honest, perfectly. But I think that I can't totally rule them out. I think that if he comes back, they have enough good vibes potentially that they could, be in that in the same way that they were a couple of points out this year. They could probably do it again next year.
Now, an interesting one. Chicago. Now, Chicago are fascinating because, as Jojo from the group has talked about, that they were riding high at one point in the Central, and they were doing a really good job, and they were in a playoff spot. What I would point out is that they, much like we talked about Celebrini with the Sharks, Bedard was the offense for the Blackhawks, and he got injured. And once he got injured, they were in big trouble. And I think the problem for Chicago and the reason why I don't think I have them in very likely, I think I have them in depends on the offseason or still struggling, is I think there's less around Bedard still than there is around Celebrini. And I just feel like they're still a few pieces away.
No, I agree with that. I don't think that their their supporting cast is necessarily as good. They have
it's also a harder division.
It is differently. Like certainly, the Sharks have a much softer landing spot in the Pacific. The Blackhawks, like it's gonna be tough to fight their way into that Central. There's no way that they're getting into the top 3 of the Central. Like that's just that they're 30 points. Yeah, they're 30 points out of that race. That's just not even close. Even if, like, we're talking about, like, let's put it in numbers perspective. For them to be in the mix this year, they would need 20 more points than they got this year. That's 10 more wins. I can't see what's going to happen in this offseason, even with, obviously they've got, another young, gun in Anton Frondell who's come in. Yep. Obviously they've been drafting high. Maybe they draft high again in this and bring in, someone else. But expecting those young players to, kind of take off. They've got the same kind of situation on D that San Jose has, where it's just, it's a younger D lineup, but I wouldn't say it's a significantly more talented D lineup in some of their spots.
I kind of feel like, and it sounds like, again, the Sharks fan in me coming out, but I think it's weird because, again, I think Bedard has the same level of respect with a lot of people that Celebrini does, but I think that the newness and the sort of the suddenness of that Celebrini run probably sells San Jose a little bit better than Chicago sells, because Bedard's been there a little bit longer. And, there's it's that weird thing. And again, it's not necessarily a fair thing before anyone jumps on me, but people look at Bedard and go, yeah, but like he's been there longer than Celebrini. And look at what Macklin's done this year. And like Celebrini's really exploded. And like Bedard's been really good, by the way. He's been great. He's just been injured. So like, and hopefully Macklin can avoid that. But I don't know. We'll likely struggle. It depends on the off season. I don't have any
I think struggle. I think struggle is where I would put them. I think that they're on the upswing. Like, I think there's an important distinction between teams that are going downhill in terms of some of these teams and going up. I think that the Blackhawks are still going up. But they are, maybe still a couple of years out of being in the mix.
Yeah, I think so too. Columbus. Should I just put them in will likely struggle? Because I think that's what's going to happen.
I think so. Like, I think, well, we talked about them a little bit already. There's a bit of work still to be done there for sure.
All right, let's talk about the Detroit Red Wings, because this became the story of the last week, where Detroit, who were at one point just before the Olympics topping the division, missed. Now,
wild difference in, like, obviously schedule, but like, the way that people were talking about
all of the analytics dudes doing laps of honor on the Falk trade, because the stats on Justin Falk's role in Detroit, he was as bad as advertised. And what is funniest about that is, obviously, if Detroit, they lost again, if Detroit lose out, that pick is not lottery protected. If Detroit lose out, it is a top 10 pick, which means that the funniest thing could happen and St. Louis could get a number one off the back of Detroit for trading Justin Falk.
Incredible. Plus extra other assets. It was like a third and a couple of players and stuff in that trade as well. And Detroit
would still have Justin Falk. It's a double loss. There's a lot of revisionism going on from people as well, saying, oh, well, Detroit will definitely make it next year. They were so close this year. They'll definitely make it next year. I don't know. I think that Detroit were leading an Atlantic that couldn't quite work out what the hell it was.
Yeah, the Atlantic was a fucking shambles for a while.
Because we all saw, like, Montreal. Now, as Brad Treliving said, we didn't see the Montreal train coming. And we didn't see the Buffalo train. We didn't see those trains coming down the tracks. Like, and I think we kind of did see Montreal a little bit. Buffalo has always threatened it, but has never done it before. But I think you put Detroit before the year. You would have put Detroit, Buffalo, and Montreal in the same bracket. Of they are supposed to be the coming power. It's about time.
Yeah, I mean, they've been for several years the sexy pick in the off season to make a big jump forward, and eventually, if you keep saying it, eventually you'll be right. Like, people have been saying that about Buffalo and Montreal for literally like 5 years. Like, they're like, oh, this is the year Montreal's going to do it. Oh no,
Montreal made the bubble. Montreal made the bubble final, and everyone said that Montreal were here.
Yeah.
And we've spent since the bubble final talking about the fact that Montreal are here, and now they finally are here.
That was what, fucking 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
5 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm my question genuinely is, if you put the trades that Detroit have made and put the moves that Detroit have made and the results Detroit have had on a piece of paper, you take the name Steve Yzerman off the top of that bit of paper and you write Brad Treliving on the top of the bit of paper. Are you trusting this team going forward?
Yeah, there's so much name value.
I think that Steve Yzerman is doing a world of PR to, like, people are like, oh, it's Stevie Y, and like Stevie Y is, he's got
so much more good faith than anyone else.
He created what happened in Tampa. Don't worry about the amount of work that Julian Brisbane has done to actually make it happen.
Well, just the catchphrase of the Yzer plan of, like, trust it, trust that
the Shanna plan, the Yzer plan.
Yeah,
isn't it interesting, by the way, that those two guys, both Red Wings, they've got the Yzer plan and the Shanna plan, and both of them are kind of.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they didn't have, a storied, like, playing career, that they wouldn't have this level of, of respect and expectation that they know what they're doing. Like, I mean, I don't think that Detroit is a bad team or anything. Like, there are good players on that team. I just don't think that they're significantly better than they were the past couple of years. Like, they are effective. Yeah, they're basically the same team. That's not to say that they couldn't, potentially, take another step forward or two or anything like that in the next, couple of years. Like, they're supposed to. They've been out of the playoff picture for like 10 years or something, right? Like, I think it was like 2015 or 2016 or something the last time that they were in the playoffs.
So they've gone from that. They've gone from that ridiculous run of always making the playoffs.
Yeah,
and then Ken Holland broke the franchise, extending that run, rather than actually letting.
Because I remember that the year that they missed was the year, like, the Penguins took over as, like, the longest active streak at that point in time.
So Ken Holland broke the end. There's a really good, for anyone who ever watches any of the stuff from Secret Base, there's a really good breakdown that they do on the end of the Detroit dynasty of making the playoffs, and they show what, like, the way that Ken Holland didn't dismantle that team, let it collapse. And the way that they went from the unbroken run of playoffs to where they are. And I think that I've got them in likely to be in the mix, but there is a reason I have them in likely to be in the mix. And it's going to segue into the next point. Do you have any problem if I put Florida in will make the playoffs? Because I think the answer is that they will make the playoffs as long as A, they are not injured anymore, and B, and far more importantly, the hangover has subsided.
For sure. I mean, look, obviously, Barkov being out the whole season, that's huge. And then just the entire spate of injuries that they had and the hangover of winning 2 years in a row and then not having, any real off season.
I think the only thing that can sink Florida is the Kachucks. Like, and I think we're going to find a situation in the next 3 seasons where Keith Tkachuk works actively on manipulating both Matthew and Brady into the same team. And I don't think it's going to be one of the teams they currently play for. I have my destination where I think Keith would like them to go, and it's the organization he's a special advisor for, which we will talk about soon. But I think the only thing that can stop Florida making the playoffs is Matthew Tkachuk can't shut his mouth.
That's definitely a part of it. Like, to be honest, like, the Florida is a big part of the picture of why the Atlantic is turned upside down this year. Like, for the last few years, the top 3 in the Atlantic has been Florida, Tampa, and Toronto in some combination. Like, and then Boston in and out of that. In Boston in and out of that
Who
spot.
won't
Like,
die.
Yeah, those have been for some reason who are just this fucking corpse of a team that are still somehow making the playoffs. But there are four like those four teams have been like the top of the Atlantic for like the last decade. And eventually them kind of falling off. Florida, obviously, everything catching up to them. Just the reality of the last 2 years catching up to them. At some point in time they were gonna completely fall off. I wouldn't be surprised to see them, they could fucking win the Atlantic next year and I would not be shocked. And that left, this gulf of space for, Montreal and Detroit and Buffalo to, take up the slack with, all of the points lost between, Toronto and Florida, who are literally at the bottom of that division, who were previously at the top of that division. Those points got to go somewhere, and it went to those teams.
I think the one of the funniest dangle lines I've heard in a very long time was the other day when Florida played Toronto, and he was like, the Toronto Maple Leafs played against some of the Florida Panthers. Yeah. And it was like the bottom couple of lines because nobody else was there.
Yeah.
And we'll come to Toronto obviously last because you leave them there because they're the money. Anyway, the Islanders, we've sort of talked about the Islanders a bit in the mix.
I mean, the Islanders are kind of like Boston in that regard of like they should be bad and they still somehow manage to to stay in the mix. So I don't see why they wouldn't be in the mix.
My prediction is the Islanders will basically get the same amount of points every year. It is up to the division as to whether that's enough.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's basically
the Islanders will score their points.
Yeah.
And they will sit on a level. And it is up to them if it happens to work.
I mean, let's put this in some context. So looking at like the wild card race in the East, the Capitals, the Red Wings, the Blue Jackets, and the Islanders all would make the top 3 in the Pacific. Points wise, if they were in the Pacific, they are playoff teams. That's just numerically how it works. They finished like the top team in the Pacific is 93 points currently with Vegas, and Washington got 95. Detroit could end up above that because they're at 92 currently. Columbus 92, Islanders 91. They could all hit that same, basically about that same point once the season's finished. So, like when we're talking about what's a playoff team, it's so relative on the division.
So how much of a metronome are the Islanders? So 2021, 2022, 84 points, 2022, 2023, 93, 2023, 2024, 94, 2024, 2025, 82. They basically hover around a mid 80s average.
Yeah. And it's just about whether or not that's enough.
Third, sixth. It just depends. It absolutely just depends on everybody else in the Metro. And if the Metro decides it's going to be vaguely good.
Yeah, I mean, like basically, if you look at the Metro this year, it's kind of like the Hurricanes at the top, and then a big step down, and then about 6 teams in and out of that spot over the course of the season. That's kind of what the Metro is right now.
Yeah, that's what the Metro is. It's weird. Winnipeg. They're hard. They're real. Winnipeg are a hard one.
I want to rule them out, but like at the same time, they should be. They were President's Trophy winners last year. They should be better than they were this year, and they're not that far out.
So Winnipeg, I'm selling on Winnipeg.
Winnipeg are in the Central, right? Like, I'm not wrong about that. Yeah, in the Central.
I think the crash. I think the crash is coming, and I think part of it is the Central. So, like points wise, like they scored a massive amount obviously last year, and a large amount the year before, and then but you got to remember, like, they were 89 points in 2021, 2022. They were 95 points in 2022, 2023. Then they got 110. Then they got 116. Then this year they've dropped off a cliff. Now,
so my big question is what's Connor Hellebuck look going forward?
Well, these are the questions. I think Hellebuck's a massive problem. I also think part of the issue is, when we've talked about it with the Jets a lot, the locker room stuff with the Jets and the off-ice stuff and like the leadership stuff, and it's a really weird locker room. And it's been a weird locker room for a while. And remember, Cheveldayoff is still the general manager. Like they've had one general manager since they've returned to the league. It's Kevin Cheveldayoff. He is the only general manager this version of the Jets have had. They still can't get free agents to go to Winnipeg.
No.
They're still largely relying on the idea they're going to be able to draft people. I don't see anything in free agency that's going to make.
And they can't even necessarily hold on to their, draft. Like, they traded Rucker McGrody because he didn't basically want to play there as well for Brendan Yeager, who I think played today. But like, it's an interesting thing because I think they're roughly the same team that they were the last few years, but the results are different. Like if you look this year compared to basically Connor Hellebuck, the last 5 years, the 4 years before this, he's a 920 goalie who puts up about 30 goals saved above average. This year, 895, 5 goals saved above average. That is a fucking massive, huge difference. Like last year with the President's Cup win, he was a 925, almost 40 goals saved above average. That is like from replacement goalie to from basically replacement backup goalie to best goalie in the league. Like that is the difference between the two of those things.
That defensive core is atrocious though. Like if you look at that defensive core for a team that should be that good, have a look at that defense, right? And Hellebuck, it's not great.
I mean, there are worse, but it's not incredible.
It's not incredible, and you're dealing with.
But it's kind of the same as it's been previously too. Like he's just bailed them out prior to this.
But what you are dealing with is a bunch of players who are like 33 and older.
Yes, yeah. And I think that's the question. Have they all hit that point? Have they all hit that point where they just...
Mark Scheifele's only 33. But my God, does that man look 90?
Yeah.
And his body reacts like he's about 90.
This is not a young team.
Jonathan Taze is there, remember? Like he's there. They should have been transitioning to like completely Kyle Connor's team and Velarde's team and those sorts of things. But like then they went out and they've got Nino Niederreiter and Nemestikov and Gus Nyquist and like Josh Morris. Like Josh Morris is there as the other, sort of alternate captain, but like he's not that young. Lowry's 33. Like it's a group of guys that you feel like are all hitting that. And when you've got a couple of guys in that phase of their career, you can ride that out. But when basically your top 3 lines outside of really Kyle Connor are kind of getting there, it's probably you're a bit slower and you're in a division where you've got to see Dallas a lot and you've got to see Colorado a lot. And that's just not a good recipe. It's not fun.
I think that's the big question. Yeah. The reality is that this team shouldn't. It's not fair to expect that Connor Hellebuck to save this team, but that's what he's done the last 4 years prior to this. Saved a team that probably didn't deserve to be as good as it was in the standings. If that has to end at some point. If everyone has taken just that one step back to the point where he can no longer do that, this team is fucking cooked. Absolutely fucking cooked. All right.
So this is the hard bit. Where are we putting them? I'm the only thing stopping lottery odds.
Yeah.
Is do we get a bounce back from Hellebuck? But my other question is
I think that's the big question.
I think my other question is somebody going to come in and take Hellebuck off them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. It's so hard to trade for a goalie with term and cap. I'm gonna suggest that they go and struggle because I don't think that they're bad enough to bottom out. I don't see what's coming in the off season to change who this team is. This team is who it is.
I think the problem for Winnipeg is Winnipeg's a team that needs to bottom out because they
won't be able to.
They need the picks.
They do need to trade Hellebuyck if they want to bottom out.
They can't get free agents to go there. Like they just will not go to Winnipeg.
No.
All right, Nashville. I'm going to put Nashville. I'm going to put them straight into depends on the off season, and my reason for this is obviously this is the end of Barry Trotz. He's moving out of the GM role. Nashville by the end of the season had kind of worked out what hockey was again. But they started really badly. And then by the end of the season, they sort of, they were in that mix with the Sharks and the Kings and everybody for that last playoff spot. And
I don't think they're any worse than those teams.
No, so I think that it depends on what Nashville can add into the mix.
Yeah.
Because I think that they've got the base is okay. I think the only concern for Nashville is again what we talked about then with Winnipeg. You've got Ryan O'Reilly is getting older. Stamkos is obviously older and broken.
Yeah, he has these little stretches of like brilliance,
and then it's not.
Yeah.
I just look at the Preds and I can't see them dropping off enough to struggle.
Yeah,
but I also can't say that I think they're going to take the massive step forward. So I think that it depends on the off season's probably fair.
Yeah,
I think we might have found our next lottery team. Now, again, the only thing that could possibly stop it, and we've talked about this with a couple of them, is what they've got in net. But he was really injured this year. And you worry about when a goalie comes back from that sort of length of injury, especially when they've just signed a contract that large. The Rangers,
to be fair, like on paper at least, he kind of looks a little similar to the previous year. Yeah, I mean
my problem is I think we're in the territory which I've talked about before, the season I always refer to for goaltenders is the year that the New York Rangers made the Stanley Cup final against the Kings and had absolutely no right to be on the ice in the Stanley Cup final. And Henrik Lundqvist was making 45 saves a night. Yeah. And again, that image of that last image of Hank sprawled on the ice, because he made 3 saves in that one. And it goes in eventually. I think the same thing's happening with Shesterkin now. The Rangers have nothing.
I feel like that's who the Rangers have been since the start of Henrik Lundqvist's career.
I have been yelling it from the mountaintop. I have been screaming about the Rangers, and it's every year it's but they made the playoffs. I'm like, but there's nothing there. It's evil.
Before we move on from them versus the Kings, by the way, today final game for Jonathan Quick for his retirement. Congratulations to him for a pretty great career.
He's had the funny part about it is he's actually had quite a nice little end of career stint in New York. He's been very reliable.
Yeah.
The Rangers fans have actually
for a 40-year-old goalie.
Yeah. The Rangers fans have been very comfortable with him in net. When Igor went down there, you know what, we're kind of happy with Quick. He's okay. Yeah. He's doing what he needs to do.
Look, the Rangers I think are going to only go down for a little bit. Obviously Panarin's already moved out. There's probably going to be more. There's probably going to be more moved out in this off season and in the coming year. I think that they're only going to get worse before they can get better.
This is it. When we talk about teams that have to bottom out.
Yeah,
the Rangers have to bottom out.
Do you think that they're going to send a letter again to their fan base? Because I feel like they shortchanged themselves on that. They thought that they'd done the job. They sent that letter, 3 months later or whatever. They're like, oh, never mind, we're okay. And I feel like they just never run. Yeah, they just. I just think that they learned their lesson. Are they going to do the same thing again?
I think they will. I genuinely think they will.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's wild.
Where the hell do you put the Kraken?
I mean, that's the fucking question every year. Is there a more milquetoast team than the Seattle Kraken?
This is the weird bit. So there used to be, I've mentioned this before on the podcast, one of the things I used to listen to is the Around the NFL podcast, and they had a segment which they referred to as the Dalton scale, which was in the NFL, if your quarterback is better than Andy Dalton, you're okay. And if your quarterback was worse than Andy Dalton, you weren't. And he was the absolute median of teams. He wasn't good. He wasn't bad. He just existed.
The Seattle Kraken is a team entirely of Andy Daltons.
They are. They just exist. They exist. They go there. They're you see them playing and you go, oh, look, they're quite aggressive and quite exciting. And then you go, how do they lose?
Yeah.
And like,
I mean,
Bobby McMahon has been playing like Dick Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, they brought in Bobby McMahon, and he is like just become this all-star because he is like he is the exact like median player, and then he fits in perfectly on that team.
He's playing like Pete Gretzky, and they've been losing. Like, that's the thing. This goal-scoring tear, and it hasn't helped.
Yeah.
The Kraken, again, they have the advantage of a soft division, but I think they've got the disadvantage of that division featuring the Sharks were the first team that missed out, and I think that the Sharks are probably standing in the queue ahead of them going, no, we're first. We've got more on offense than you do. And I think that Seattle has a more reliable defense, but it's not good. It's just there.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like maybe is it in the mix? I don't think it depends on the offseason because I don't think it matters.
No,
I don't think it matters.
I don't think they're close enough to be in the mix.
Hang on a minute. Let me just add a row below.
The Seattle Kraken, the exact median point.
I'm just gonna change this to meh, and we're gonna put Seattle in that because I think it doesn't depend. I don't think the offseason changes a damn thing. They've had changes in the front office. Ron Francis is gone.
They're such a wild team. Like, I think that they would win the AHL every year, but they're good enough to be like
those comments wouldn't know what hit them.
They're this like they're that in betweener that like is too good for the AHL but not good enough for the NHL.
They're not they are the absolute lesson in what not to do on an expansion draft.
But they're Columbus. Like, that's exactly what Columbus was and has always been. Like, I do not understand how after Vegas someone came in and went
and got it wrong.
No, I'm gonna make a team like Columbus that is just bad and okay the entire fucking time that we exist.
If you hire Ron Francis as your first general manager, what are you expecting?
It's wild because they argued that they were this like analytics-based team who was going to do all these smart things. They learned from Vegas. They learned from all these things or whatever. And then they just went out and did absolutely fucking nothing like anyone analytically minded suggested that they would do. And they just played the most middle ground thing. They drafted all of these fucking players that didn't make any sense. They couldn't get any value for. They are just like someone's little brother playing fucking NHL general manager.
Yep, exactly. And they're not even doing it really well. And I say this as someone who's just done a long career mode, and won all bar 2 cups. And brought back all the classic franchises too. So the Hartford Whalers go. Anyway, Seattle's they started badly. They've never gotten better. And they've not shown any.
I don't know what it's going to take. That's the big question for me. I don't know what it's going to take to get them to be better or worse than that.
They were talking about moving Shane Wright. The latest conversation is they're going to move Shane Wright.
I don't know what that's going to do for them.
I'm like, why? Well, what are you bringing in?
Yeah, like they need to, like, honestly, they're a really good base if they like draft the next McDavid or something. Like, the rest of the team is good.
They'd trade. I know if they won the draft lottery and got the first overall pick in this one, and all that debate around McKenna and a couple of other guys, they'd do it. They'd trade back to 6.
Yeah. For a couple of picks.
They'd trade back to 6 for a couple of picks, and they'd probably trade for the rights to Dakota Joshua. And think that was a team upgrade. I don't, but well, think about it. Bobby McMahon was an upgrade. That says a lot. All right, St. Louis.
All right, St. Louis. Yeah,
not like St. Louis. It's going to be interesting because we don't know. Obviously, Doug Armstrong hasn't officially left, but he will be, but he won't be. But who the hell knows at the moment? I don't know what Doug Armstrong's doing. They, I think, are going to struggle.
They almost lost to, the Penguins AHL team today. So that was closer than it should have been.
Again, the only thing that stops them from really ever bottoming out is the occasional moments when Jordan Binnington decides he's a league goalie.
Hofer has been pretty good for them recently. Yes. Like, I feel like, he's been gradually, very slowly taking over the starter job. It's about 50-50 now.
But Binnington's a weird one for me because Binnington is...
He was dog shit today.
He's the most Jekyll and Hyde goaltender in the league. Yeah. He doesn't have an average setting.
No.
He's world class, or
he's either stealing your games or losing your games. That's
he's the worst goalie you've ever seen, or he's a legend, and there is no in between mode. He doesn't own one. I think they're going to struggle again, just because I think they've got too much to do. Now, the good news for them is they hung on to Thomas, which that was a concern that they were going to move him. Yeah. They've got pieces there, but I just think they don't have. Again, one, they don't have enough. And two, much like Winnipeg, there is an arms race happening ahead of them.
Yeah.
And they are not in it. So I think that's a problem. Am I just putting them in the draft lottery? Because I think I'm just putting them in the draft lottery.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think there's a little bit to say about Vancouver, but I think that's where we can start. Realistically, they have to again go down before they go up. But there's not a lot further down they can go.
You say that, but I don't know if the going up bit's a thing.
No, I mean, how long we've been talking about Vancouver in the same kind of way. They've just been, they get close to being decent and then they fuck it up, and they get close to being decent and then they fuck it up, and it's just every year. Like,
can I just say, President of Hockey Ops has done a wonderful job with this team. He's really showing his hockey knowledge, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast. I genuinely wonder if a general manager job came up and Patrick Alvin applied, what would you use as his CV? Because what moves in Vancouver can you say belong to Patrick Alvin?
It definitely is. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
I don't think it can. Remember, 3 times we've talked about trades this year with Vancouver, and it wasn't Patrick Alvin having a conversation. Jim rang the press.
Yeah.
Right, and it was according to Rutherford, and it's like, hang on, but Patrick Alvin,
and we know, and even when we talk about Rutherford, we know that it's him as the mouthpiece of owners. Like, he was essentially, hired to be the third guy in the room when the owners decide what they want to do. But honestly, Vancouver, I just feel bad for some of the players on their team. Like, it was a point in time where Elias Pettersson was this up-and-coming star.
How many years now are we going to be told that Elias Pettersson is the problem in Vancouver?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild
to me.
Like
that for a second.
The first couple of years, he was putting up these highlight reel plays, and then the fucking joy just left his eyes playing in Vancouver. Like, you saw, the first couple of years, he was this, exciting young kind of, guy who's going to be the future, center on their, leader of their team and everything. And then you just see his soul get slowly crushed over time until Vancouver just kind of absolutely fucking bottom out. Like, this team was never obviously going to get better after trading Quinn Hughes. Like, that was the bullet to the head right then. And then I just feel bad about, guys like Besser and Pettersson who, could be on playoff teams somewhere. They could be somewhere else, actually enjoying themselves.
They've watched their friends leave and go to better situations. They've watched JT Miller go and break an entire other locker room.
Yeah.
I will look again. I know that some Vancouver fans will come for me and will yell at me about this, but the damage that JT Miller did to the Vancouver Canucks, I think, is going to be, there will be books written on that in the future. Because if you ask the Rangers fans right now, he's doing the same in New York.
Yeah.
Like, he's supposed to be the leadership in the locker room in New York, and that locker room is fractured to all hell. I think we know what's causing the problem. The last one, and I left them till last because people like to hear about them. So, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are currently last in the Atlantic, they surpassed, if that's the right way to put it, the very broken and injured Florida Panthers. They traded some players away, but not really, and didn't really go for assets, and sort of like half-assed a rebuild. And they've got a guy in charge of a rebuild who doesn't know anything about hockey. There's some talk that they're after Sonny Meta from Florida, but the other point to that is that the expectation is that Brendan Shanahan is going in as president in New Jersey, and he's already identified Sonny Meta, and the suggestion is that the Leafs are being used as leverage to get a better deal for Meta in New Jersey. I think Toronto's got more work to do than a lot of people think.
Yeah.
I don't think they've got almost anything on defense at all. And there's a lot of conversations that they will once again this offseason be having a conversation with Morgan Riley about waiving. But that defensive rebuild hasn't worked. Carlo, like, none of that's worked. That's just Ekman Larsson's the best thing they've got on defense. And if you remember when he left Arizona, he was broken. Like, he was broken.
I think the thing for me, Toronto, and the way that it's built is that there's so much there that's been built up by this organization over the last couple of years that's going to take a while to tear down. Like, a few of these things are coming off the books this year, but not a lot. It's going to take a bunch of moves. It's probably going to take a few years.
They fit my stereotypical, they roll like an egg. They built this team for speed and skill. Then they decided to change up the general manager who built it for speed and skill. They brought in a general manager who hates all of those things, who decided to build a team for the Canadian hockey uncles, but also couldn't move a lot of the speed and skill out because they're on contracts that were guaranteed. Then brought in a coach who hates anybody who's got any form of pace. And anyone who likes to move up the ice with the puck is very much despised by Berube. So then they tried to build a team that was sort of Berube-esque, but also had Nylander and Matthews. And I think one of the best bits of evaluation I think I've heard, which was Dangle, when they talked about the fact that William Nylander has been one of the best players the Leafs have had all year. And he said, yes, because he doesn't listen to Berube.
Yeah.
He ignores him and does what he wants. And it means he gets caught out defensively, but it also means he's been one of the only players who's been any good.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's the only time that they were successful. Like, you can look at the Leafs of old and go, well, they were bad defensively, whether or not that's true or not. Statistically, maybe not. But you can look at it at the point of these things and go, oh, this all wasn't working because they lost in this way or whatever. But the way that they were changed to be like, oh, well, we're going to win by not doing any of that and doing these other things, they've just made them this awful in the middle of nothing, where they're no longer this fast skilled team, but they're also not they're not this heavy hitting old Kings or Blues team or anything like that. So they're this stupid, like, mix of the two that don't work well together. It's just this, like, they're just a cup of oil and water at this point in time that just doesn't fucking do anything well.
We can't pay really high flying expensive players, and we can't pay all these guys who are really fast. We're going to give Domi a lot of money.
Yeah.
Why are we giving Domi a lot? It worked really well the first time, so we're going to run it back and give him all the money. Okay, we're going to move Mitch Marner out. We're not going to get anything for a trade, but look at the cap space we've got. We're going to go and get defense with the cap space we've got, and they didn't go and get a defenseman. Like, they didn't do it. They gave the money to Domi and all of these middling forwards. They went and picked up instead.
Yeah, we're going to pay $3 million to Dakota Joshua and
and try to sell you on this idea that these guys that they're just sort of pulling out of nowhere are young, hot prospects. When if you actually check, like again, like Bobby McMahon, or the young, hot prospect, but he's 20, was 28.
Yeah.
Like 28 when he got into the roster, 29 now. Like he's not young, but people believe that he's young. So I think that the problem for the Leafs is the way that they built the team, and the way that they've chosen to build the team, and the way they've chosen to put together the roster is really poorly balanced, and they don't quite understand what looks good going forward, and they're not quite sure on what they would like to be going forward. And I think that the general manager is going to make a big difference. They've talked about wanting an analytical approach again, which I think is really funny given they've spent 3 years ripping the analytical department to pieces, only to go, actually, we like them. Let's go back and get an analytics person. But then apparently Keith Pelly's conversation pieces around the coaches, the whispers coming out is he's already identified who he wants, and it's not necessarily that. And it just feels there's also a big, the whole thing of, are they actually going to fire Berube after tomorrow's game, or are they going to go, well, the new general manager can have a think about it? I don't know what there is to think about, but I just feel like Toronto has so much building to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like Toronto has so much work to do. And you can't do it in one season because money-wise, they've got some stuff coming off the books.
Yeah, there's just too much to do.
And there's nothing to trade. They've got nothing to trade. And we could still have the funniest outcome. Like, if the Leafs aren't picking in the top 3, it's not protected. Their pick goes. So, like, the Leafs kind of need to win the lottery, because if the Leafs don't win the lottery, it's not protected anymore. Which means that they lose this pick, and they kind of need somebody to come through the door on draft day. But they don't have anything to move for assets. They don't have anything to move to bring people in. A lot of teams are looking for defense this year. Toronto's going to be trying to scout a whole new defensive core.
Yeah.
Plus, they've got to fill up the rest of it. Plus, they've got a goaltender who's perpetually injured.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to put them. It's either going to be struggle or draft lottery. I think it'll be struggle. I think that but it moves down if Austin Matthews isn't the same.
Yeah. It's a big question mark for sure on him.
A lot depends on when Matthews comes back from this injury, what he looks like. I think the best thing that could have happened for them with this injury is the fact that it's leg. It's not wrist again.
Yeah.
Which means he's been able to rest the wrist. So that's the only thing I would say for Leafs fans.
Yeah, I mean, this is still the worst season of his career goals-wise. And obviously, he is not an example of a player who is, generally able to play 82 games in a season anyway. He just has not been healthy at any time except that 1 year, a couple of years back. If he can find a way to be healthy, that's a huge difference for them. If he can find a way to have a entire season of being healthy and scoring like he can, that's the biggest possible benefit that they could have.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, so we're going to do things a bit differently in terms of, normally we do a preview for the playoffs, but obviously we're recording now to get this out of the way instead. What we'll be doing is we'll be dropping a video. Once the playoff formats are done, we'll be dropping a video where Brendan's going to do the East, I'm going to do the West, and we're going to do our predictions. We'll send each other the predictions too, so we can say what we both think is going to happen in that first round. And then for the rest of the rounds, we'll do them at the end of each. We'll do podcasts at the end of each round. But we will be putting a video predictions up once we've got the brackets sorted out. Just quickly though, biggest surprise you think for the playoffs?
I mean, it's hard for me to not say the Penguins. I didn't expect them to be here. Obviously, I picked them to miss the playoffs at the start of this season. I'm very happy that they proved me wrong. But there were a lot of things that went their way this year in terms of honestly, 4 or 5 players who who came in having, either not played much for the Penguins or not played at all for the Penguins, and kind of totally changed the makeup of that team. Like in terms of like, trading for, basically, this is a year that I would, very much argue that Dubas maybe should win, GM of the year, because, you look at guys like, Anthony Mantha having a career year in, coming back from, the struggles and injury and all that kind of stuff that he's had, trading for Chinnikov, who's been fantastic for them. Bringing in guys like Justin Brazeau, who, had like minimal, exposure to the NHL previous to this. Having, Ben Kindle, drafted in the first round last year, come in and play almost an entire season in the NHL as an 18-year-old. That is a huge turnaround of a team that was not supposed to be a playoff team. And at times, really, kind of looked like a team that on a good night could beat anyone in the league. So that's, definitely the biggest surprise for me.
I'm going Ducks. I thought, like, again, the Ducks making it the biggest surprise. I'm also going to have them down. I'm also going to have them down as my biggest surprise in the first round of the playoffs. I think they're going to win.
Okay,
I think the Ducks will win their first round matchup.
I can see it. I can see it.
It's not because they're running hot at the moment, but I just feel like they're not really anticipated to be there.
No. They got nothing to lose. They got nothing, there's no pressure on them, really. It's all gravy at this point.
All right. Who do you think in the first round will be the biggest disappointment?
I'm
going to start that one because it gives me a chance to break out old reliable.
Biggest disappointment.
The Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, look, that's fair. That's fair.
Oilers.
Yeah, to be fair, they kind of failed into the position that they're in, now. Like they haven't been a team that's looked particularly,
they can still
great.
win the damn division.
They could, yeah, and their goaltending is more suspect than it was previously.
Oh.
Yeah, no. Looking at the teams in the first round, I'm just looking at them all now. I can't see a team more likely to shit the bed than the Edmonton Oilers. That's for sure.
Like, look, the Oilers could quite easily go on a run again because it's the Oilers. But
it's possible.
I don't have any faith in this group of the Oilers. I think that they're worse in net. I think that Draisaitl, even though he's gonna, you better.
Yeah, how healthy is Draisaitl?
He's not that healthy.
Yeah, he's going to play. He's going to play, and we've seen that before. We've seen him play with one leg before and still be okay. But
the problem is, if you've got a Draisaitl that's injured and trying to do more than he really can, that's probably going to take away from the offensive production. Yeah. So, like, because if it starts to drag a bit, they need their first round series to be fast, and they need to get it over and done with. Otherwise, if it starts to go into deep water, Edmonton will they won't make it. They will not survive it.
I'm curious in a few weeks or a few months to find out what exactly it is. I wouldn't be shocked if a Draisaitl requires surgery but isn't getting it because he knows that would put him out of being able to play in the playoffs.
There is a part of me that would think that the smart, they would never do it. But the smart conversation in Edmonton possibly was to Leon this year, set it out. We've got stuff we've got to fix. Like, we've got a lot of stuff to fix here. Sit this one out. I know we're going to make it, but sit it out. The breakout player, who do you think there's anyone in particular who you see being a massive breakout player in the playoffs?
Oh, that's a good question. I reckon, there's a good chance that maybe someone on Montreal who, are having.
I was going to say, yeah, I had a Montreal pick on that one there, which is interesting given, my lack of my lack of appreciation for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah. Whether that's Suzuki or Caulfield or whoever, obviously they're both having career years. They're both having kind of big breakout seasons. They could they haven't had a lot of playoff, if any kind of exposure. They could definitely come in and
See, I think Cole Caulfield is too obvious. I think Suzuki's too obvious too. I'm going to go really left field though. I'm going to go Zach Baldock.
Okay.
I think he's just gonna again, like, you know, he's had a solid first up season, really. Like I think that someone in Montreal is going to start scoring that you don't expect, because I think everyone's going to watch Suzuki and watch Caulfield. I think someone weird's going to score.
Yeah.
Likely Conn Smythe winner. Would we both like to say Nathan McKinnon at the same time, or?
Yeah, I mean, I can't
Kyle
see
McCarr and Nathan McKinnon. We want to.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want a money pick, like that's, you know, you got to go.
I think at the start of the year we both said Nathan McKinnon.
Yeah. There's for good reason. Like, there's no reason to pick against him.
We've ended up in this absolutely bizarre situation where Connor McDavid's going to win the Hart again.
Yeah,
and I would give it to McKinnon. Yeah. I absolutely would give this one to Nathan McKinnon. But we are in this very weird situation now in the NHL where there is almost, if you say a name that's not Connor McDavid, you are committing some level of blasphemy. I think that he'll win. I think he'll win the players' vote. Obviously, I think McDavid probably wins the players' vote. But I kind of feel like Nathan McKinnon should get the Hart this year.
I don't think it would be unreasonable for him to win either.
Like, yeah, I again, it's this weird thing of, especially with the Canadian media, there's like, if you mention that anyone other than Connor might win the Hart, you get looked at funny. Like when people mention that Macklin Celebrini might get votes if the Sharks make it, and I think he'll get votes anyway. But the idea that, you know, if the Sharks make the playoffs, he gets the Hart, because like there's no way they make the playoffs without him, and that's correct. That is actually the definition of the award. But there would have been a riot because but Connor should win it. And like Connor's scoring really well. Obviously, it's Connor McDavid. Like he's having a quietly brilliant season, but the bar is different. He sets a different bar, folks. Now the last thing to remind you of is the bracket challenge is out, and we've posted that up. It's under the link in the YouTube. So if you're watching the YouTube video, it is under there. It's also in the Australian NHL Fans Facebook page. And I think
it's pinned to the top, but that's hard to find sometimes. It'll be in the little featured bar.
Also shared to the Twitter. So like, get in there. It's good fun. You can come and watch Brendan and myself do what we do every year, which is crash out really early. We've had a couple of those where we've both sort of struggled really early. When you stuck to Dallas like glue. Maybe
I've learned my lesson. I mean, the hard thing is that I feel like I eventually learn my lesson, and then I pick against my gut, and then that's the year that team does well. That
you did that.
Pretty much happens to me every single year.
The year that I said that Connor McDavid wouldn't have a good year and he got injured. And then you every year pick McDavid, and the one year you didn't pick McDavid, he had an otherworld season.
Exactly, yeah, it's guaranteed. So whoever I don't pick, check my result. Whoever I don't pick, that's who will
check whatever Brendan picks. Go
whoever I picked last year, but don't pick this year, that's who it will be.
I have a habit of picking against the Oilers, and if you don't think I'm going with that one again this year, you're crazy. I'm definitely going with that one this time, though. I really believe that it's not just for trolling. But that'll do us for now. Thank you, everyone, for watching, listening, catching up, all of those sorts of things. Please like, please reshare when you can. It really helps us out. We will be back. Obviously, I said there'll be a video previewing the first round of the playoffs, and then we will be back at the end of the first round to preview the second round, and we'll catch you all later.